They didn't call him free. They called him lonely, because to them, a man over 50 who lives alone must be broken, bitter, missing something. But here's what nobody tells you. He isn't missing anything. He's protecting everything he worked for. His peace, his clarity, his right to choose quiet over chaos. He used to wonder if the silence meant something was wrong. Now he guards it like it's sacred. Stay with me. Today, you'll hear 7 truths about being happily single after 50. Not because he gave up on love, but because he stopped giving away pieces of himself just to fit into someone else's life. The assumptions they put on you. After 50, when you're young, being single is called freedom, something to explore, something to enjoy. But when you're older, they call it a problem, a sign that something went wrong, a symbol of failure, even if you don't feel that way at all. People project their fears onto your life. They think, he must be sad, he must want someone, he must be trying to fill the gap. They can't imagine you waking up alone and feeling perfectly fine about it. They can't imagine a dinner for one being anything but depressing. But here's the truth. Most men who are happily single after 50, they aren't looking for someone to fill anything. They've learned to enjoy the space that's already theirs. They've turned quiet into comfort. They've turned empty rooms into places of creation and rest. And that is hard for others to understand. They expect you to explain yourself. They expect you to justify why you're okay. They expect some tragic backstory. They don't realize your contentment is already the answer. You're not avoiding life. You're living it on your terms. And the peace you found in solitude isn't something you're willing to trade for someone else's version of complete. You stop trading peace for company. In your 22nd and 32nd, you tolerated more than you should have. Arguments that dragged on for days. Compromises that chipped away at your time. The slow erosion of your alone hours, until they became almost non-existent. You told yourself it was normal. That love required sacrifice. And it does to a point. But after health treads, you see the cost more clearly. A single night of tension can echo in your chest for a week. A raised voice can stay in your head long after the words are over. One argument can take the shine off your entire month. And you ask yourself, for what? Is company worth it? If it comes wrapped in constant negotiation, is romance worth it? If it costs you the very calm you worked so hard to earn? The truth is, you're no longer willing to trade peace for company, because you've learned something younger you didn't know. Peace is rarer than love. It's harder to find, harder to keep, and once you have it, you'll do whatever it takes to protect it. Some people think that means you've closed your heart, but the truth? You've simply opened your eyes. You rediscover who you are without roles. Most of your life, you were defined by titles: husband, father, provider, problem solver. You wore them with pride. They gave you purpose, but they also kept you from asking the deeper question, who am I when no one needs me? When you're single after 50, the noise fades. There's no one to perform for, no one to impress, no one to save. At first, it can feel strange. The absence of those roles can feel like the absence of yourself. But in time, you realize you are still here. In that stillness, you meet yourself again, sometimes for the first time in decades. You remember the hobbies you left behind, because they didn't fit the schedule. The books you meant to read, but never had time for. The trips you wanted to take, without compromise, without adjusting for someone else's preferences. You start doing things simply because they matter to you, not because they serve a role, not because they make you useful to someone else. And you become whole again, not because someone completes you, but because you stopped forgetting yourself. Freedom with your time and energy. In a relationship, your time is never fully your own. It's a shared calendar, a constant negotiation, a balancing act between what you want and what someone else expects. That can be beautiful in the right relationship, but it can also be draining. After 50, your energy isn't the same as it was at 25. It's not unlimited. It's precious. And you learn quickly, every hour you give away needs to be worth the trade. Now, you wake when you want, eat when you want, work when you feel most focused, rest when your body asks for it. No explaining, no justifying. If you want to take a trip, you pack a bag and go. If you want to spend the afternoon in silence, no one takes it personally. You're not avoiding commitment. You're honoring alignment. Because the truth is, when you reach this stage in life, time and energy aren't just resources. They are currencies, and you're finally spending them on things that give you more. Instead of draining you dry, money becomes simpler and safer. Let's be honest, money and relationships are a tricky mix. Even with love, money decisions can create tension. Différentes priorités, different comfort levels with risk, different definitions of enough. When you're single, your money follows one path, yours. There's no debate about what to spend on, no resentment over how it's saved, no compromises that make you quietly uncomfortable. You decide your priorities. You decide your investments. You decide when to be generous and when to hold back. Financial freedom, after 50, isn't about having millions. It's about clarity, knowing that every dollar in your account is moving toward what matters to you, your security, your joy, your legacy. And here's something people overlook. Money stress steals years from your life. Peace of mind has a value you can't measure in currency. Being single doesn't mean you hoard. It means you choose, with precision, with purpose, without apology. You can love without losing yourself. Being happily single after Haltreds doesn't mean you've sworn off love. It means you've changed your relationship with it. When you were younger, love was often all-consuming. You molded yourself to fit. You gave more than you should have. You said yes when you wanted to say no, because you thought that's what love required. Now, you know better. If romance comes, it's welcome, but it's not your lifeline. It's an addition, not a replacement. You no longer hand over your identity for the comfort of companionship. You no longer shrink to make room for someone else's comfort. Love now has to meet you where you are, not pull you back into the version of yourself that sacrificed too much. That shift changes everything, because when you love without losing yourself, you choose differently. You're not afraid to walk away if it costs your peace. You're not afraid to wait for something that truly fits. And if nothing comes, you're still whole, still steady, still free. The power of saying no without guilt. When you're younger, no feels like a dangerous word. You soften it. You explain it. You wrap it in excuses so no one gets upset. But after Haltreds, you start to see the cost of every yes. Every yes takes time from something else. Every yes spends energy you may not get back. Every yes risks your peace. And here's the shift. You realize you can't afford to say yes to the wrong things. Being single sharpens that instinct. You're not trying to keep the peace in a relationship. You're not trying to please someone at your own expense. You can decline invitations that don't excite you. You can skip obligations that drain you. No becomes a full sentence. No follow-up. No guilt. Some will call it selfish, but you know the truth. It's self-respect, because when you protect your no, you also protect the energy you need to say a wholehearted yes to the things and people who truly matter. The social life you actually want. You're not antisocial. You're intentional. When you were younger, socializing sometimes meant saying yes to every invitation. Crowded rooms, small talk with people you'd never see again. Now, you prefer depth over volume. 2 meaningful lunches with old friends are worth more than 10 quick coffees with acquaintances. 1 genuine conversation beats an entire evening of forced laughter. Being single means you choose your company deliberately. You no longer spend time out of obligation. You spend it out of desire. Your calendar isn't crammed. It's curated, filled with people who add to your life, not just fill space in it. And the beauty of this stage of life? You have nothing to prove socially. No need to be everywhere. No need to impress anyone. You value connection, but only when it's real. Silence stops being scary. In the beginning, silence can feel heavy, like something's missing, like you should fill it. So you turn on the television, you scroll your phone, you look for background noise. But with time, something shifts. You realize silence isn't empty. It's full of your own thoughts, full of your own rhythm, full of a peace you didn't have. When every day was filled with someone else's voice, silence becomes a friend, a place you return to, a space where you hear yourself clearly, without the static of other people's expectations. You stop fearing it, and you start protecting it. Because the quiet isn't loneliness anymore. It's clarity. It's home. The quiet strength of self-reliance. There's a certain confidence that comes from knowing you can stand on your own. Not the loud, boastful kind. The quiet, steady kind. You can fix what needs fixing. You can handle the paperwork. You can make the calls. You can make plans without waiting for someone else to decide. It's not that you don't welcome help. You just don't need it to function. Self-reliance after Heltritz isn't about rejecting connection. It's about knowing you're whole without it. And here's the thing. When you know you can rely on yourself, you stop fearing the future. You stop wondering, what if no one's there for me? Because you've proven to yourself that you'll be there for you. That's not loneliness. That's sovereignty. Nobody tells you that happiness after 50 doesn't have to follow the old script. It doesn't have to mean a partner, a shared house, or someone waiting in the living room. It can mean a life you built exactly the way you want it. A day that starts when you decide. A calendar filled only with what matters. A home that's quiet because you like it that way. If love comes and adds to that, welcome it. But if it arrives demanding you shrink, explain, perform, or trade your peace for company, you'll know exactly what to do. Because you've already learned the difference between being alone and being free.